Hey everybody, ZeroTolerence 55, aka Jimmy, or whatever you guys know me by. And today I'm bringing you part 2 of the BioShock storyline, and I'm going to title it The Beginning of the End. After you watch this video and hear what I have to say, you'll understand why I'm naming this video that. But before I start, I want to thank you guys for the success of part 1, both to my new subscribers and my old subscribers, anyone who liked, commented, or even watched it. I'm glad it went over well, and that being said, before you watch this video, if you have not watched part 1, here it is. Check that out first because I'm going to pick up right where I left off. No explanation, just going to pick up right where I left off. So watch that first. If you've already watched that, here we go. All right, when we left off, Adam had been produced and all this stuff was going on in Rapture. Well, once Andrew Ryan noticed that Sophia Lamb had a significant political presence in Rapture, he decided to have a series of publicized debates with her, hoping to ruin her popularity by exposing weaknesses in her philosophy and beliefs. This was a screw up on Ryan's part, because the debates led to an increase in those supporting her. Fearing her and her following, Andrew Ryan hired Augustus Sinclair of Sinclair Solutions to monitor her, hoping to find a reason to take her into custody. Stanley Poole, who was a man who worked on the Rapture newspaper, also worked for Sinclair and became an undercover spy within the Rapture family, which was the name of Lamb's cult-like followers. Eventually, Lamb was arrested by Ryan's men and locked away in Persephone, a prison complex owned by Sinclair. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but I'm sorry. Meanwhile, Fontaine Futuristics was able to produce Adam on a massive scale, thanks to the breakthroughs of Bridget Tenenbaum and the Little Sister Project. Fontaine's company began the marketing of gene tonics and plasmids, injections that allowed individuals to do superhuman things, such as the ability to create fire at their fingertips, increase muscle tissue and movement, etc. These plasmids and tonics were developed by Dr. Yi Suchong, and also immediately after their release, they went mainstream within Rapture, with multiple citizens using different ones. At first, Andrew Ryan admired Frank Fontaine and the success of his business, seeing him as a prime example of the type of people who deserve to be in Rapture. What people did not realize at first was that Adam and all this stuff that these people were injecting into themselves was rewriting their DNA. They knew that. What they didn't know was it was addictive and it also began corrupting their DNA. That comes into later play later. Anyone who started using this stuff would eventually become known as splicers, people who splice their DNA to change their genetic makeup. But we'll come back to that later on. As the years passed, however, Ryan began suspecting Fontaine of various crimes ranging from smuggling to murder. Ryan could not prove any of this, and Fontaine knew it. And on top of that, Andrew Ryan was worried that Fontaine's monopoly on the plasmid business could threaten the social structure within Rapture. In response, a full-scale genetic arms race broke out between the two and their followers. Eventually, Andrew Ryan had had enough and attempted to arrest Fontaine publicly, and a shootout ensued. Fontaine went down guns blazing as he wanted to in 1958, or so Ryan thought. The ghost of Frank Fontaine would return later. With the apparent death of Frank Fontaine, Andrew Ryan then assumed control of Fontaine Futuristics and began producing plasmid and tonics within his own company, Ryan Industries. Ryan began instituting harsher punishments to those who stood against him, finding reasons to arrest those causing problems, including most of Sophia Lamb's followers. Rapture was filled with civil unrest following the quote-unquote death of Frank Fontaine, and that is when Atlas rose up and began rallying people within the poorhouses in Rapture. In reality, Atlas was really Frank Fontaine in disguise, pretending to be one of the poor citizens so he could rally them into guerrilla warfare against Andrew Ryan's security forces. To combat this threat, Ryan made changes to the Little Sister program, sending the little girls out into the streets of Rapture to gather Adam from any corpses they stumbled across. Due to civil unrest, Ryan also commissioned Dr. Suchong to develop protectors for the little girls, taking prisoners from Persephone, many of them Sophia Lamb's followers, and modifying them into prototype Big Daddies. In order to keep up with Adam demand, Ryan's men began kidnapping young girls to turn them into little sisters. After Suchong's death at the hands of a prototype Big Daddy, the Protector Project, as it was known, was placed under the control of Dr. Gilbert Alexander. Alexander completed Suchong's work by successfully bonding a little sister to a specific Big Daddy. Out of spite, it was made sure that the little sister happened to be Eleanor Lamb, Sophia Lamb's daughter, who was kidnapped and turned into a little sister following her mother's arrest. Eleanor was paired with Subject Delta, formerly known as Johnny Topside within Rapture before his transformation into a Big Daddy. Topside, as he was known, was a diver who accidentally stumbled across Rapture while on a dive. He became somewhat of a celebrity in Rapture until Andrew Ryan became suspicious of his intent and origin. Ryan believed him to be a spy, so he had Topside locked away in Persephone, where he was later chosen to undergo the Big Daddy transformation, becoming Subject Delta. Delta and Eleanor became the first atom gathering couple within Rapture. All the civil unrest and minor skirmishes finally reached a climax on New Year's Eve 1958, when Atlas supporters attacked key locations all across Rapture, including the bombing of the upper-class Kashmir restaurant. All of the fighting that had occurred therefore after on that night became known as the first full-scale battle in the Rapture Civil War. Just prior to the New Year's Eve riots, Sophia Lamb had escaped from her prison and began the search for her daughter. On New Year's Eve, she and her fellow splicers found and captured her daughter from her protector, Subject Delta. Delta was incapacitated by the newly developed hypnotized plasmid, and while under the influence of it, Sophia Lamb handed him a pistol and made him kill himself in front of Eleanor. Lamb then retreated back to the safety of Persephone with her daughter, avoiding the war that broke out all across Rapture. The story of Delta and Eleanor comes into play later. Throughout the Civil War, citizens and splicers began to take down Big Daddies, and those who did learn how to retrieve more Adam from the little sisters by harvesting the slug inside and ultimately killing the little girls. In response to this, Bridget Tenenbaum decided to develop a plasmid of her own that would kill the slug inside of the little sisters without harming the girl, and ultimately return them to normal little girls. She then set out to rescue as many girls as she could, and her and the girls retreated to an underground safe room in the sewers of Olympic Heights to wait out the war. This is the end of this chapter of Rapture, what is known as the beginning of the end. It's the fall of Rapture. My next video is going to focus on the Civil War itself, everything that happened in that time. So please stay tuned for that because it gets even more interesting. If you really enjoyed this, like, subscribe, comment, all that fun junk. Follow me on Twitter if you have more requests, more ideas, or just want to tell me you liked it. I'm at ZeroTolerence55. Link will be in the description. I thank you guys for watching this. And like I said, stay tuned because more videos are coming.